I don't want to keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. I want to dance on the podcast known as
Trapped Under Plastic, the only hobby podcast where you can get the inside scoop on Skip It Ballsack. Shout out Palpatine.
Dude, he's just out there living his best life, just skipping and skipping until he's got to force lightning bolt somebody.
Absolutely. I bet the energy for that comes from his ballsack.
Dude, that is the one good thing that AI could give us, is it could give us that video.
That's the one good thing.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing else.
I assume that the sack is, in order for this to actually work, like it has to be, the skip it needs to be parallel to the ankle. So I assume that the
He's just wrapping
sack is long enough that it's got to wrap around his leg a few times until it gets to the ankle, and then he can fucking skip it. And then there's a little number counter in hairs.
they just like grow out or something like that. Yeah.
You got to count all the hairs that boop out afterwards. And that's what this podcast is really about.
What's your one word response to AI? Yes or no?
Nah, I'm good, dog.
Yeah, I'm good too. Anyways, let's get on to it. Shoot, I had something I want to talk about in the beginning, but now I forgot. Let's get into the Preamble Ramble. Have you watched any of the TV show Andor?
I've not. But you told me it's better than other ones that I have not enjoyed. So,
yes, I think that's true. I immediately finished the season 2, and then I went straight into watching the movie Rogue One, like many people have, because it dovetails perfectly into that movie. Not perfectly, but like it's supposed to be perfect.
I just rewatched Rogue One this week too.
Oh,
so
nice. Yeah,
maybe I'll be able to like bookend it.
The ending of season 2 is days or hours before the beginning of Rogue One, so it's perfect. And then episode 4, the very first movie, is like hours or minutes even after the ending of Rogue One. So
is it before the daddy gets kidnapped? Daddy?
Oh yeah, not that part, but where you see Cassian on that planet going to meet his contact, who he ends up actually shooting. What the fuck are you doing right now?
I don't know. It's kind of Star Wars, kind of Harry Potter song. I was giving you background music because I felt like the scene needed a little bit more brevity.
Yeah.
I totally felt it though. Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah.
But anyways, it's amazing.
So you watched a TV show.
I immediately started watching season 1 again because it's been like, I don't know, a year and a half since I watched it. And yeah, it's all pretty good. It's pretty good stuff.
Okay. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I watched a different movie, and I texted you right when I was about to start it.
Hell yeah.
I watched Nosferatu.
Hell yeah, you
Nosferatu.
did. Yeah.
And that movie fucking slaps, dude.
Speaking of old crusty man ball sack.
Yeah. Dude, can you imagine his skip it ball sack?
Oh man, it would just fall off the first rotation.
Yeah, but like think of all the vampire power in that ball sack. Like the crazy dude that is like his homunculi dude.
Yeah.
I assume he just like feasted on that like he was eating devil eggs.
His ball sack?
Yeah, he's feasting on that's how he got his powers.
The ball sack feasted on the ball?
No.
Or
he got to suckle on the ball sack of Nosferatu. That's why he went crazy.
Disgusting.
Yeah, so note to self, if you ever find a random vampire ball sack, don't feast on it.
No.
Because you go crazy.
Really crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you get some powers, but you probably end up dead.
Yeah.
You know, you never actually
Easily.
get to be a vampire.
Yeah.
Because that's always Dracula's thing, right? Is he always promises that his thralls, he will at some point give them the true power of you know, ever after living.
You gotta dangle that ball sack.
Yeah, he's dangling the ball sack. It's like he's trying to hypnotize you instead of a little pocket watch that hypnotizes you. It's just his ball sack that he's hanging back and forth, and he's like, "I will give you everlasting life."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yes, I will." He's like, "Now, go eat that rat, you stupid fuck."
Yeah.
He's like, "Okay."
Yeah. Anyways, this critically acclaimed, wonderful movie. Pretty good.
It is so goddamn good. It was not as scary as I was kind of like preparing for.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of Robert Eggers movies aren't really that scary. I think the scariest one is probably The Witch, and that one is mostly atmospheric and like dreadful. And this one is kind of a similar thing. Not a whole lot of, you know, traditional scary like we imagine in most like modern American horror movies.
Yeah, but they get the they get the sickness really good in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's so sick.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, Dracula makes them sick, and they're just always sweaty and pale.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite moment in that movie is when, oh man, what's the guy who comes to do the original like real estate deal? Oh, the mute. You muted me, I think. Wait, what?
Did I mute you? Hang on, let's just check 1, 2. Are you muted?
Test.
Yeah, you're muted.
Since when am I on 1?
Yeah, this thing's some bullshit. Let's check this for me.
Test.
Yeah, I'm muted. Okay, I just muted you. Now I know how to mute you.
You muted me so that you could cough clearly into the mic. Anyways, the best part of that movie for me is when his name's not Renfield. Is it Renfield? It's the guy who comes to deliver like the realty deal to Nosferatu. The story is actually very similar to Dracula. Did you notice that?
It's the same story. Yeah.
What the fuck?
It's the same
Anyways,
story. Well, Nosferatu is the story of Dracula. It's the original Nosferatu movie is the retelling of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay.
Which is the story.
okay.
Which is so they're all the same movie. They just like they got a name with a tilde on it. So it's
What the hell? I think that's so lame. But anyways, when he originally goes to the house and like he doesn't see Nosferatu, but he's kind of just like blinking around like a wraith. He's like over here and over there. And he's like whispering. He's like, "Whoa, yo, God, I can't do it." But I love that part. It's awesome.
Yeah, you do his voice pretty well.
I mean, for like 3 seconds, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing in that movie that I don't like, because we're not going to spoil things, you should go see it. It is like visually stunning. There are so many shots that are just like, I wanted to just pause it and watch, like just see how the shot is framed because they're so beautiful and macabre. But is that I can't get behind the giant poofy mustache, dude.
Oh no, a little too comical.
I can't get
That's
behind.
fair.
I can't get behind
That's fair.
Dracula having a giant poofy mustache when otherwise he is a hairless, like gaunt, just decrepit yet still muscular, nasty figure, and he just got this, the giant poofy mustache, and you can't see his upper lip. You can't really even see his mouth move.
Yeah.
It's a little thing.
He's Eastern European, man. They have those giant mustaches, okay?
Right,
It's
yeah.
a cultural thing.
It is. That's true. I mean, I don't know. Let's go back and watch the movie when Renfield is in the village. Do all the dudes in the village have the big
Every
mustache?
single one. Same one, actually.
Yeah, it's just they only had the budget for one mustache prosthetic. They just reuse it.
Yeah.
They're just handing it around to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Speaking of creepy things, are you scared of a certain kind of like? Do you have an unnatural fear of a certain kind of like animal, like a phobia?
I don't think so. I think I have a healthy fear of things that can kill me. Like if I met a grizzly bear or a venomous snake, I wouldn't be like, let's check it out. You know, like that guy from fucking Alien. I wouldn't be like, oh, hey, little guy.
He goes and tries to touch it and fucking melts his mask.
Yeah, but I don't think I am more afraid than is reasonable.
Okay. I am unreasonably afraid of not all spiders,
Okay.
but furry spiders, dude.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Dude, furry spiders scare the fuck out of me.
I feel like you would be like a spider guy because you're like a cold-blooded lizard reptilian man.
That's why lizards and amphibians are better because they eat the fucking spiders.
Okay.
Unless you're in parts of the rainforest where the spiders eat the frogs, dude.
Oh, no.
Those are the spiders I don't like. It's like that's where the bar is.
Okay.
Can you eat the things that I want you to be eaten by?
That's a good fear, I think.
Yeah. And so the other day, I lost my goddamn mind because there was a giant wolf spider right by my front door, and I couldn't get back in the house. Because I'm like, I can't get by this.
Get a shovel.
Okay. I decided I needed to, so then I took a picture of it and I texted my wife. And I'm like, I'm trapped. She was at work, and I was like, oh fuck. And luckily I was able to get in the garage. So I was able to get in the garage, and I decided I need to, like any good video game player, the best approach for this is to dual wield.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Double the weapons.
Okay. Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I mean, maybe not in theory, but go on.
yeah. Well, the other thing I've learned in my time with taking care of big spiders, and I feel bad about it too, because this big honking spider probably eats 100 mosquitoes a day, and I don't want him to die, but he also can't live.
Yeah.
You know, it's the worst possible conundrum. Really.
Yeah.
It's a moral quandary.
Right.
I found myself in.
Right.
So he needed to die. So I've learned that you say like, oh, you get a shovel. That's fucking noob tactics. You don't get a shovel. Because spiders, they can kind of like get into like cracks and crevices and shit.
Yeah.
And like you need a flush hit with a shovel.
Yeah.
You know, to get them.
Yeah, one of those edging shovelers that's flat. You know, you do like the garden with. You know.
Yeah, that would probably be better. Yeah. I need to buy one just for that.
Yeah, spider killer.
It's just called Spider Slayer. I just brand it into the handle.
Yes.
I use a broom because a broom, it will contour. Now it won't kill the spider. But you get the 1.5 second stun.
You crit it, yeah. Or sorry, you stun it.
Yeah, you get the 1.5 second stun.
Yeah,
and then he's like, "Oh, the fuck was that?" Then you can triple attack.
Okay.
But the problem is initiating the combat with the spider, with the broom.
You gotta pass a fear check.
Oh, dude, I fail every time. Every time. I can't instigate. It doesn't matter how long that broom handle is. It feels like it's about 6 inches long when I'm like, I can't get that close.
It's definitely gonna jump at you, you know?
Oh, yeah. And these fuckers can jump. Feet.
No, they can't.
Feet long. And he was the size from like, now his legs all spread out. He's the size of a softball. This is not a small spider. And he had been eaten healthily. So I realized what I needed to dual wield with was a can of Hornet spray.
Oh, wow. Ranged melee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you initiate combat by Hornet spraying him while you close the distance, right? Okay. And so as I started the Hornet spray, I had already committed to the rush.
Oh.
Right? Like, yeah, like you're rushing the tower.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oftentimes when you rush a tower and you realize that then, you know, they're flanking back, it's too late.
Oh, yeah.
By the time you realize it, you're already dead.
Mm-hmm.
I had that moment because
there was a second spider flanking you.
Oh, dude, I would have my heart would stop. I would have been dead. I was just like falling over dead, and the spiders have just been sitting there like, the fuck's wrong with this guy? I rushed him. I sprayed. I boom headshotted him. Like I was on him. And he even started running, and my mist was going right with him. I was pelting the whole time. But as I'm closing the distance up to about to swipe, I have realized,
oh my God,
that this guy does not give a fuck about Hornet spray, which is pure poison. He's just like, fuck this shit. He's running across the wall, jumps onto the goddamn floor a foot from my foot, covered in Hornet spray. I feel at this point
it's super powered.
It's some kind of mutagen, and it's made him stronger than before. And now he's pissed at me.
I thought you were going to say that you were spraying and running through the spray cloud.
I'm sure I inhaled a bunch.
Just dusting yourself.
Yeah. At one point when you realize you're doing something incredibly dangerous, you have to turn your brain off and you just have to act.
Yeah, go ape mode.
Yeah, and I did that to my own downfall.
Incredibly dangerous.
Yes. I played enough Legend of Zelda in my life that I learned how to jump attack. So when it jumped to me, I was like immediately jumped. Like I was jumping, still jumping like just straight up.
Like you were bunny hopping.
Yeah, I'm still spraying.
I'm
still spraying. It's almost like the
you're like jump spray.
The spray was like pushing me higher.
Like a rocket jump.
Yeah,
like
rocket jump.
Like a TF2.
Yeah,
Can you get up and show us physically?
Yeah. Like I was like, huh. Right? And I felt a little bit like Luigi in the Mario games where he's kind of a floaty jump where like he hangs there a little longer than Mario does.
Okay.
So I'm doing that, and then I realize like I have to attack now or I run away, and I consider this a loss.
Yeah.
And I don't tell anybody about it.
Okay.
So I tried to hit him with the broom, and I hit him, and as I land, I'm hitting him, and I lift up the broom, and he's jumping. The stun didn't take.
Okay, so your 50% chance to stun did not.
Yeah, it did not land.
You weren't lucky.
And he's jumping straight up. Like,
the fuck?
Straight out of arachnophobia, dude. Jumping straight up. And I put the broom in between me and it, not just to like give myself this moment of this isn't real, to like physically, like I visually have blocked him. He's no longer there, right? Because like, oh, he's not there. I don't see him. I don't see him. No, the broom's in the air. He's in the air. I put the broom in the way so he doesn't jump at my fucking face.
So for like the 1 second when he is midair, you're just visually blocking it?
I visually blocked him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then he landed, and I scream louder than I've ever screamed. And I wasted all of my whole stamina bar just goes all the way down because I just hit.
And
he's dead.
Oh my gosh.
He's dead. He went with a fucking fight though.
Yeah.
He was not gonna go gently into this good night.
What an encounter.
I felt like I had just run a marathon after that. I was like
Amazing.
dude, I just needed
You conquered it.
I had to get away, get the corpse away so like all his cousins.
You got broom right there.
I know, yeah, that's true. I did just sweep him into the rocks.
There you go.
I swept him in the rocks and then I kicked a couple of rocks on top of him.
Okay.
That's where his Karen is.
Well, good thing that there wasn't the clever girl moment where it was like raptor and it's like, oh, I'm dead.
No, there was a split second there where I used the broom to physically to block my line of sight of him that he would have like done a 180 in the air like a face hugger and attached to the bottom of the broom. Yeah. And I'd be like, where is he? And then he climbs up the broom handle.
Yeah. Or like one of the times when you're jumping and you land, he just like goes up your leg.
Oh, God damn it. That is the worst fear. They're on you.
Yeah. Inside your pants.
Oh my God. I don't know what I would do.
They would put spider babies in your ball sack.
Yeah.
Because they'd obviously see the sack and be like, oh,
this is where spider babies go.
That's where they go.
We should write the screenplay for Arachnophobia 2. Yeah. And that's how it starts. That's the opening scene. Yeah. Crawling up the leg, infected the ball sack.
It's like some Final Destination Arachnophobia like hybrid. That'd be the trailer for sure, that scene.
I got bad news, Scott.
Oh no.
I didn't even write that story on the Preamble thing.
Fuck.
Oh shit, what else do I have? I got a free TV.
Like the big CRT one?
Yeah, well, remember I told you the last episode that I went to the garage sale?
Oh, no.
Dude.
You took one you didn't need?
No, 2 days ago, the old lady whose garage sale it was, because she's a neighbor down the hill, she just randomly drives into my driveway, and I'm outside working in the yard, and she's like, hey. I'm like, hey. And she's like, you know that TV that you were looking at? I'm like, yeah. She's like, nobody else wanted it. I brought it for you. I'm like,
no.
Oh. So she gave me the TV for free, and I was like, I felt bad. I was like, let me give you some money. Whatever. She's like, no, I don't want any money. I just want to get rid of the TV. So I took the TV because it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to tell this little old lady no?
Yeah.
So I have the TV.
Okay. That's not the one you want, right?
I mean, it's not the one I want, but I did power up some Ninja Gaiden on there from NES. It looks pretty good. So, okay. I mean, I'm okay for now.
Okay.
And it's like down. It's in my studio now.
Oh man! So you brought it downstairs?
Yeah. And I got that. I got that other desk chair over there, the swivel desk chair, from FlexiSpot, and so I just have that sit right in front of that. It's Bad News Bears, dude.
Yeah, just a TV and a chair and a controller.
Bad News Bears. Do you know who Andrew Zimmern is? The chef, Andrew Zimmern.
I feel like I think so, but it's not. His face is not coming to mind.
He's a kind of chubby guy, a bald guy. He's from Minnesota. He's done what?
Oh yeah, I know this guy.
Yeah, he did a bunch of stuff on Food Network and stuff. So
yeah.
He's like one of Minnesota's most famous chefs. Okay, kind of celebrity chefs, really good chef. And he was on Hot Ones recently.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, and I just saw a clip. I think it was last episode. We were fucking pining about the shorts. It was a short about Culver's, and he kind of goes on a rant.
Okay.
About how Culver's is the best fast food burger and fuck In-N-Out. In-N-Out has no flavor, and the only reason that they have shit like Animal Style off the menu is to try to make up for the fact that their burgers have no flavor. And he goes on for like 5 minutes on why Culver's is the best.
Nice.
And I was like,
it's just justice right there.
Fuck yeah, dude. Midwest represent. If you don't know what Culver's is, you probably will in the next 5 years because it's taken over.
Oh yeah.
It is spread from Wisconsin, the birthplace of all great things, and it's spreading like wildfire. And it should be to your neighborhood soon. I told my wife about this. She's like, "Yeah, we should move like 3 states away and open a Culver's and become rich." I'm honestly, that would work, but I don't want to own or run a fast food restaurant. There's that one small detail,
Yeah, I feel like Culver's and even In-N-Out and all of them, it really kind of depends on the day. Because I've had, like, the Culver's down University from the office, their hit rate is pretty fucking low.
Dude, you never
You gotta go.
can't go to the ghetto Culver's.
You gotta go to the Culver's that's, like, in the middle of fucking nowhere.
You want the ones off the interstate,
Where
yeah.
they have, like, way too much pride in in their burger making. That's where they're, like, always amazing.
Yeah. Because everyone that's working there, it's a town of 1,000 people, and it's all teenagers that are from that town, and they're good kids.
And they think that this job is insanely important, and that it will like lead to like their future career.
And maybe it will. Maybe it will. I mean, I don't know. I gotta imagine Culver's pays their like assistant managers and managers pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not creepy like the Chick-fil-A employees. Let's get this straight.
Yeah, what the hell?
There's nothing weirder
They're
than
like
going to a Chick-fil-A cult.
They're so nice, but like it's like they're forced to be nice.
Well, it's because it's what Jesus wants, dude.
Yeah.
They have to. I swear to God, they got to like say a prayer at the start of each shift.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and they got to like check for sins before they clock out at the end of the night.
Did you commit any sins today?
Yeah.
We're gonna dock your pay for that.
It's creepy. Chick-fil-A's creepy as fuck. And there's times where I don't go there just because of that.
Oh my gosh.
It's bad. It's bad. It's weird. It ain't right. That boy ain't right.
It ain't right.
Yeah, and they're out there with their little tablets. Like they have drive-through windows, but they like don't want you to use the drive-through windows. They want like Jedediah with a tablet to take your order.
Yeah.
And then I always like
That human touch.
Dude, the good thing is they're such nice Christians that I can abuse them.
Wow.
I don't mean verbally or any other way.
Just emotional. What do you mean? If you don't mean any other way, why'd you say it then?
I abuse their niceties to fucking load up on sauces because those bitches will never say no.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what sauces do you want with that? I'm like, I'm glad you asked.
The rainbow.
Dude, give me 3 of everything. Sir, you got a 10-piece nuggets. You heard me. And they never say no. Dude, my cupboard.
Actually get 3 of everything?
Yes, I do.
What the fuck?
Dude,
Why?
I want variety.
Why do you need 3? Why not 1 of everything?
Because I keep 2 of everything back in the cupboard, in the condiment cupboard.
That you never get to, right?
Well, yeah, but that's a different story for another time. But I know I have them.
Yeah.
Like when we go camping or on hunting trips and stuff.
Yeah.
I could go for a little Chick-fil-A sauce. Maybe a little Polynesian today.
Bang.
How am I feeling?
That's actually crazy you mentioned those 2 sauces. So when my wife goes to Chick-fil-A, those are the 2 she gets. Polynesian and Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, well, they are 2 of their best.
Mm.
The buttermilk ranch, not so much, but that's just me. That's just me.
Podcast about mini painting. Reminder.
Yeah. I want to give a little RIP for our Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. How disgraceful.
Yeah, it's 2 years in a row we've made it to the Western Conference Finals, and we just look like a group of middle schoolers.
At least we had Game 3, right? It was Game 3? No, it was Game 4.
Game 4.
That was like a bizarre blowout.
Yeah.
But like, man, that last game was so depressing.
Yeah, and it was like it felt like that game, one side or the other would just put a curb stomping to start the game, and that would set the pace for the whole thing. Yeah. It needed to be the Timberwolves, and they just like, well, it was over after the first quarter. Frustrating.
It was. I actually couldn't see the beginning of the game, and I was playing volleyball, and we went to like it's sand volleyball. We like went to like this communal hose to like rinse our feet off, and another player from the other team who was there before us just uttered the score. And it was like 15-41.
Yeah.
And everyone just let out this collective sigh. Like,
Ugh.
oh, God.
Ugh.
It was disgusting. It was a shellacking. It was bad.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't often talk about sports ball on here, but this is one of the things that we both, like when you get to playoff basketball with the Timberwolves.
Oh, yeah, dude.
You know, hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
They're a fun team to watch.
And the fucking Knicks won their Game 6, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to Game 7.
No, that was Game
Was that Game 5?
5. It was Game
Okay,
5. So
so
now it's 3-2. They were also
you're
down.
right. You're right.
They were also down 3-1.
But they brought it back. But it was in New York this last game.
Yeah, so they got to go win one in Indiana. Oh, God. So, man, I just knew it would happen, and my 2 teams have both made it to the conference finals, and they both lose.
What's your other team?
Knicks.
Knicks are your other team?
Knicks are my other team.
Okay.
Dude, I've been a Knicks fan since I was a little kid. I had like I had jerseys and stuff in like the 5th and 6th grade. My starter jacket. I don't know. You're probably too young for starter jackets. I had a Knicks starter jacket. Like that was my team when I was a kid. So I've always been a fan of the Knicks.
I don't know, dude. Tyrese Halliburton's looking pretty fucking good. I feel like it's gonna be Knicks.
Take him on at the knees, dude.
Yeah, he's quite. He's a thin-looking man.
Yeah,
people have compared him to Steve Urkel, but like, who cares what he looks like if he can hit threes? Like that?
Oh boy. The last thing I have to share is a pretty exciting thing. Tomorrow, as of the release date of this podcast, tentatively should happen. Hopefully it happens.
Okay.
Tomorrow will be the release of the first episode of Fireball the Gazebo. Fireball the Gazebo is a new podcast that is by myself and Vincey V, and it's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
Fireball the Gazebo.
Fireball the Gazebo. I can show you the logo here right now, Scott.
Oh, wow, I'm excited for this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've been kind of like hemming and hawing and working with this for quite a while, and it's a show. It's not like a live play D&D. We're not playing D&D. We're just having fun and going over all the things that we think are silly, the things that we've learned, the things that we enjoy in all things tabletop RPG over the years. And we have a variety. Vince is the guy that's has these interesting, in-depth topics, and then I'm the one that pokes them with forks. Mm-hmm. Is the best way I can describe that. So we have a lot of fun. We have some fun side segments where we'll do a little role play where we'll play characters.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, we play out little scenarios. I like to throw Vince for a little curveball and make him think on his feet and see how smart he really is. Check out his voices. Vince, how good are you at voices? We're going to find out.
Do you use voices when you DM often?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I love voices.
Is it always comedic or is it ever? Okay.
No. I think voices are a good thing in D&D if you can do them with a level of tact. Because everything being silly over the top, it's too distracting. But it helps players differentiate or make a connection to who that character is. If they have a slightly different voice or a little accent or the way that their personality comes out in how they talk, it makes them more memorable. And you don't have to do it for every single NPC, but it helps kind of perk up their radar for an NPC to maybe someone they want to interact with more or someone that they're going to see again, that kind of thing. And so I find it's fun.
Okay.
Yeah. So you gotta do the those fish people from Star Wars.
The fish people?
Yeah, it was like, oh, it's a trap.
Oh, right, yeah.
You have to like
Admiral Akbar.
Yeah, you have to like for that. I think you have to act like your jaw, the hinge that closes your jaw is kind of broken.
Oh, yeah,
it's like a weak rubber band.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you speak with a lot of jowl. You know, you're like ha 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 ha.
Exactly. I am so ashamed right now that I can't remember the name of that race. I can't. It's killing me right now.
The Gorble jobs.
Yeah, we have to move on.
Okay.
But that's cool. We'll have it linked down in the description below. I love the name. The name is an action. Like, I am fireballing the gazebo.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah. It's a reference
Cool logo.
Thank you. That was Beast Rec that designed that for us.
Good job. I love it.
And you see that Vince and I are actual wizards.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very jealous of my own drawn beard, full beard.
Yeah.
Vince looks just like him with his silly little goatee.
Yeah, the hat. What's that hat from? It kind of reminds me of like.
It looks like kind of like Loki or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he looks more like an Egyptian wizard, and I look more like Gandalf, which is true to form. So the name Fireball the Gazebo comes from, it's this kind of like urban legend story of a game of Dungeons and Dragons, and the players are like going through this wicked garden thing. And the DM is describing the situation. It's like the path is very windy and gnarled, and there are some briars and thorns that are grabbing at your feet as you make your way through. Ahead, there's a small clearing, and you see a dilapidated old gazebo. And one of the players doesn't know what a gazebo is.
I think it's a monster.
He thinks it's a monster. Because the name gazebo kind of sounds like like a demon.
Right, yeah, you don't know what it is. Yeah, it's a weird word.
So his response is, I fireball the gazebo. So that's it.
Love that fun reference.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a lot of fun. We just kicked it off, and it's something that we just kind of get to spread our wings, and Vince gets actually me a lot,
Yeah, that's gotta be a great dynamic.
Yeah, it's fun. Going on to hobby times.
Hobby times.
We got some hobby times. Scott,
What's up?
is that actually a completed Ravager?
Well, there's no crew on it, and the base isn't done, but like the vehicle itself is done. It's as done as I want it to be. It's a Ravager, so it's got the big guns on the sides, the 3 dark lances. So there's extra cockpits that I had to paint to get this done, but I wanted to do it.
What guy doesn't want extra cockpit?
Exactly. I just wanted to paint the more difficult of the 5 first.
This one's more difficult than the other 4?
Just because it's got these extra things.
Oh, those extra guns, they cost more points?
I don't know if they cost more points, but it's just
Different
more.
builds?
It's just more model to paint.
Oh, okay.
So you have Raiders, which are the transports, Ravagers, which are like the we're just gonna shoot you a lot vehicle, and it's done. Learn some lessons about decals,
Like life lessons?
life lessons, like especially like the clear ones on the banner. I got bubbles trapped below them that just never came out. I still have to hit it with one last layer of varnish to uniform the entire thing, like more of a satin varnish, a little bit less than satin maybe. But that's not going to hide the decals at this point. I put so many layers of varnish over them, and you can still see the edges and stuff. So at this point,
Only if I try to like tilt it at an angle.
yeah, like you can see like the glossiness or like the light reflecting. You can see like the edge of the sticker. But I'm happy with it. It looks good when you put all the fun details together. I like the white backed decals. Those are a little bit harder to notice that they're not like perfectly like blending into the surface.
Yeah.
For some reason, my inkjet decals are bad, or they're harder to work with than my laser ones. The laser one I had is just like it just melts into the surface. Like it doesn't take much to do.
Because lasers.
Because lasers, obviously.
Yeah, obviously it's the laser.
And then I have the other 4 that are like almost done. I'm painting the silver on the rest of them, which is like kind of like the longer step because it's a non-airbrushed step and there's like a decent amount of it as well. And painting that decking is very difficult with like that fucking mast thing in the middle. I gotta do some like
to odd angles.
Yeah, I got
some Mission Impossible
absolutely
stuff.
Absolutely.
Fuck that, dude.
I'm roping down in there
because it's all put together, so you can't pull this whole center mast off.
And that's the thing. This is why I should have painted fucking one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have known that, and then the rest would have been easier and better and not take longer just because I didn't put everything together. But alas, I didn't do that. And they're getting done.
Okay. I got 2 things here.
You got 2 things.
First thing, and I think I probably have mentioned this when they were on a whip status, but I like the amount of battle damage you have.
Sure, yeah.
It's not too much, but it's not like this thing is crispy clean.
Right, yeah. And I'm like always on the fence about, they're in the desert. There should be like probably dust everywhere. But one thing I've learned about doing this particular scheme is that silver and dust don't look that great together because they're both very bright things. Yeah. And especially on this decking, it might look good on the lower floor, but on the upper floor, it might look a little bit bizarre. I was thinking about like making some footprints of like dust and like just kind of like doing that for a little bit of like extra filth, because it's weird that the floor is like kind of flawless and the outside is like a little bit kind of dinged up and damaged and stuff like that. I'm on the fence about it.
I assume because it's all this grading that they just come in there and power wash it after each mission.
There you go. Okay,
that's why that's clean.
All right, I'm not doing it then.
Yeah, but because they don't have to paint it, it's just bare metal.
Yeah. But strangely, the rest of my army doesn't really have battle-damaged armor. It's just the vehicles. I don't know why I decided to do that, but I'm just going with it now.
Yeah, I think it fits. I think it works. Sure. These things probably, you can't just trade these in. They're not leases that you just get a new one every 3 years.
Right.
Like really got to use them for, this is an investment.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really like, it's a small detail, but it looks so good, is what did you do for like the pin washing on the chains? It's just nice, really crisp, dark, black lining of all the details of the chains. Is that an oil wash?
No, that's just in a blue acrylic wash. And then I come back with like a significantly brighter silver and just hit the top parts.
Okay, yep. Then you just make those pop.
Yeah.
More.
So yeah, the silver things are different all over. Like for the deck of the ship, like the lowest level, I actually hit that entire thing with a contrast paint just because like it's annoying to base coat something that has deep recesses.
Yeah.
And you got to like kind of flood it. And so instead of flooding it with metallic paint, which would look dog shit, I just did it with something that's supposed to flood the surface, a wash. The top surface wasn't like perfectly opaque because it doesn't need to be, just that lower part. And then I overbrushed it with silver to get kind of like a base coat that like left that dark part down there. And then like I did a really ratty blue wash around like the edge of the inside to kind of get a little bit of a shading on the perimeter, and then like a bright silver dry brush in the middle of the decking. Just
How do you get a dry brush in there?
a little tiny baby one. But it didn't do much. It's one of those things where I was like, is this worth it for like army painting to like do this step? I can't really see it. The wash was...
I can see the fade though. The fade is noticeable of the darker blue towards the edges.
Good, okay.
And the silver in the center.
Cool.
That's noticeable, and it does look good.
Cool. All right.
I can see where there's a struggle or there's a difficulty with even like doing the wash, because yes, there's a lot of edges and everything, but there's no, it's all like you said, it's free floating. There's no surface below it where the wash would collect and then show darker.
Right.
So it's like you're kind of hoping it like
Yes.
goes over the edge and creates some side shadow.
Yeah.
But even then, on such a small scale, it's hard for that to work. But
Yeah.
I really dig that.
Thank you. Yeah, the bow damage is a necessity because I feel like when I'm painting this giant fucking thing, I'm just constantly fucking up. Like I'm getting paint splatter somewhere while I'm painting like the deck of the ship. I get silver on like part of that like whatever the masthead things are. And so when you just do a little bit of bow damage, it just gives you so much leeway to like just convert a missed brush stroke into like some bow damage.
Yeah.
You know?
You are saving yourself so much time.
Yeah.
And often when you're doing so much of that work with the airbrush, it's not as simple as fixing.
No, yeah, you can't really. Yeah. Like you can even see where I'm putting like chipping on the decals. Those cars aren't exactly the same. I use the exact same paints, and it's like it's so difficult to get it to look like the color that I produce with the airbrush after the varnishes and thin layers of translucent inks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is one of my frustrations with airbrushing, which is in a future video. Actually, it might be already out now by the time this episode goes live. I'm gonna break down and pull off some band-aids of about airbrushing, of why I think we should not put it on such a pedestal.
Are we anti-airbrush now?
Yeah.
Wow, I think you and I are gonna have to fight about that.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe after I get that episode actually written and recorded, we'll have some talking points.
Sure.
But I've long like it is a tool that I think there are a couple of things that it can do really well, but I also think that a lot of times people use it too much for lesser effect.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you got to push something to the limit to really know what its capabilities are, right?
Yeah. But like very geometric shapes and panels and stuff is where it shines the most. And so I'm going to be airbrushing when I get to the thing that I'm going to show here in a second that I've worked on.
Nice.
And so I might have to pick your brain because you obviously have just gone through. Oh,
yeah, that ball joint for the Raiders is, some of them is just like super fucking loose, and it's always just like drooping down one side.
I thought that thing was big, and then when I set it next to my car,
that's what I'm saying.
It's like the same size.
That's what I'm saying. So
it's the size of a car, but it's a spaceship.
Yeah, but like
it looks like it's a different scale game.
It kind of does. But 5 Dark Eldar warriors legit fit inside that thing.
I mean, there's no space for activities on that.
No, there's definitely not.
Yeah. I mean, actually, once you get the guys on there, I think it'll show the scale better, that it's not, with no models on it, it looks like it's a big warship.
Yeah.
Once you start putting dudes on and then you get the scale, you'll see it's more like a, what's that more like? It's more like the, kind of like a helicopter, where a helicopter is not actually as big as you think it is.
Right. Kind of like a land speeder kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jabba's floating palace.
Yeah. So speaking of vehicles, I did a 40K vehicle too.
Yes, you did. Is that thing attached to the base?
No, you can pick the car right off.
Should I grab it by the sides?
Yeah, grab it by the frame on the sides.
Okay.
Yeah, wherever. It's pretty sturdy.
I can't see
it. Grab it like right here on those little things, because that's all attached to the frame all the way through. So this is the first vehicle that I've done for my Mad Max Fury Road Orc Army, and this thing is like, it's built off of like the framing of an actual orc vehicle, the Snaz wagon, Boomdaka Schnazwagon is his full name.
Okay.
And then I took a 125th scale car, which is a 1969 Ford Falcon, which in the movies, it's between a 72 and 74 Ford Falcon GT Interceptor is the actual car used. And the reason behind that is, in the original Road Warrior movie, Mad Max's car is one of those Interceptors. And because at that time, in the early 70s, the Australian police cars were those Ford Falcon Interceptors.
Sick.
Yeah,
That's
the
awesome.
cars that they had for cops.
They had a
dude.
muscle car.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that's kind of, and that car is made its way through all the movies, but it's not just Max's car. This car is Caltrop number 6 from Fury Road. It is a car, you see it in a number of scenes, and it's actually sandblasted silver, like all the paint is removed from it. In one of the early scenes where when all of the boys are out, and there's a big awesome scene where like the camera pans in of all of them like going out across the desert, and it comes in, and you'll see this car pull up, and then it's shown up close on the camera for a while. And one of the war boys is like hanging out of the window, like screaming with one of his boomsticks. So yeah, I tend to take that car, and I cut using a Dremel with a rotary bit. I cut the entire thing apart. I cut all the panels off, the front and rear bumpers, the hood, the trunk, all the fenders, the hood, everything. Everything was cut apart. And so I have a cool shot where it's like, it looks like a skeleton laid out of all the pieces. Yeah. And then what I had to do is I had to cut and trim and cut and trim and continue to trim that back until it fit correctly over the frame so it was the right scale. Mm-hmm. And that took so goddamn long.
It's a lot of just little changes, right? And then checking a fit.
Yes, it took a lot longer, but honestly, it was a lot of fun. Like it felt like I felt enough confidence that I could get there, even though I didn't know exactly how, that I was going to be able to get it to pull off. And eventually I'd get it to about where I wanted it, but then dealing with wheel wells and axles and everything having the right amount of lift, and the fenders were still too big, and still showing the cool interior frame that's existed. I want that to be showing. So there's no doors on this thing, because the doors on this car are about 3 inches long. And if I kept cutting them down, it would just kind of look silly. And the driver is like one head out. His head is out the window. He's got a Molotov cocktail. I wanted to keep that pose and everything intact there. But in order to do that, I have to keep that stuff exposed. So there was a lot of like troubleshooting, problem solving. Mm-hmm. How do I make it feel like a real car and yet, still keep the orkiness, that, wasteland aesthetic going. Yeah. So
when I made my little vehicle, I had the same issue. It was like, I needed to have the wheels in the right spot with the car at the right height, and I just I did whatever I needed to do to make it happen. It's like, I don't care if these wheels don't spin, dude. Like, we're just gonna get it. We're just gonna get it to look right, and then just entomb it in super glue. Basically,
you just cut. Just keep on cutting until you get there. Yeah, and you'll be fine.
You didn't put an exhaust on the intake for the engine like I did. I feel so stupid. I got into car YouTube after having done that. And obviously, if you put an exhaust on an intake, that'd be awful for your engine. But yeah, more tubes looks cool, I guess.
Well, in the movie, when the big war rig was losing power, the Nut, I think is his name, Nux.
Yeah, Nux.
He climbs on the hood and puts alcohol or something in his mouth and spits it into the intake.
Yeah,
and that makes car go fast.
Yeah, I guess.
So
I mean, there's some kind of logic there, because obviously the engine is creating power by mixing air and fuel and then combusting it.
Yeah.
Put more fuel in, it's gonna go faster.
Higher combustion?
No. Yeah, that's probably not how it works, but better than what I did.
Yeah.
This is fucking sick. It looks sick. I think it's totally appropriate thematically for the orcs, and I think your goal of wanting it to feel like a blend of Mad Max and orc aesthetic without just being an orc kit that you kind of converted. I think you totally nailed that. I think this design language for the orc range isn't seen in the game. This kind of muscle car look. So it feels distinct from GW's range while still clearly being Orc.
Yeah, thank you. That was what I was hoping for. I wanted to feel like, oh, this is more of a Mad Max car that the Orcs have put their stamp on, rather than it's an Orc kit that they're like, I'm just going to say it's Mad Max because Orcs kind of look Mad Maxy anyway.
For sure.
You know,
I think
so I want to be visually different enough.
I appreciate they put the driver on the right side. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, it became very apparent time after time especially when I'm writing this script and I have to say driver side or passenger side, and I kept getting them reversed because they're driving on the wrong side of the damn road.
Yep.
So we got there, and then building the base was a lot of fun because I wanted to make sure that we had drama and movement and stuff. So it's it's both leaning to the side and leaning forward, and then the front driver's side wheel is completely off the ground, spinning. And there's one thing I did realize when it was all done that I screwed up. I didn't screw up, but I forgot to put on, or I didn't recognize, is their boomstick things. They have little scraps of like cloth and chain on them, and I didn't think about that. But I'm going to go back and add those because I can have them flying straight back.
Yes.
And that will help sell speed.
100%.
So,
I mean, you could even like have anything like hanging from any of these things.
Yeah.
Like flying back. It could be a piece. It could be like a banner. It could be chain. Could be like someone's skull attached to a chain. There could be so many things that could be flying back. Yeah, that'd be cool for sure.
Yeah. So next is painting it. I mean, not like next, but soon it'll be painted.
What's going to be the color of the main body of the car?
It's going to be chrome.
Is it going to be like 100% chrome, or is it going to be like chrome that had paint over it?
I think it's going to be 100. So the body panels themselves will be 100% chrome, like it was sandblasted, and there's no sign of paint. But then all the weathering from the environment will be shown on that to create more matte and like built up areas where sand collects and grime over time and that kind of thing. And then the different metals, we're going to be working with different metal colors. Some are going to be much darker, and like the whole like engine block itself is going to be much grimier and whatever. I think that's the direction. I know that that's not a lot of color, but if it's going to feel like the movie, a lot of the color comes from the environment in those movies.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Orange and yellows, yeah.
Yep. So we're gonna see. That's the thought.
It's gonna be a lesson in TMM.
Yeah. Yep. And that's it. So yeah, I bought that Molotov chrome. So that body's gonna be chrome, and then I'm just gonna pray to God that stuff doesn't just slide over it like a fucking ice skating rink.
It might. Give it some time though. Like apply that paint, and then like literally give it 24 hours to cook.
Okay. I could probably apply that and then, base coat a bunch of the other things.
Yeah.
While I'm working around that.
Even if you nail it with like a hairdryer for a long time, like your finger will still put an impression in it.
Wow.
So it takes some time to really like fully set up.
And then I got to try to paint the inside of a vehicle.
yeah. An exposed cage,
Oh, God. I was, very early on in this project, my plan was to have both of the orcs completely separate. There was no reason for me to glue down the orc in the back. You kind of get an autopilot and you just don't think.
Sure.
But the actual driver, my plan was because he's attached to the driver's seat and he kind of slides in there, but there's no way to get him in through the side window. So I had to, he's got to be in there.
Yeah.
It would have made my life easier. But that one's more easy to get to.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so.
Sure. You'll do it. It'll just be a little bit annoying.
It'll be annoying. Yeah, that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
It's just.
But it'll look sick.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. It'll be a cool thing. I was like, I stupidly thought going into this project that this video, I'd be able to kit bash, do the base, and paint the whole thing for one video. And it was like, after the third straight day of 8 to 10 hour days, I was like, I wasn't even all the way finished with the kit bash. I'm like, well, this ain't happening. So that's okay. I mean, there's so much in there. I feel like I would have had to rush every single step in that video anyway.
And it would have been fucking 35, 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
Even if you're just briefly mentioning each step, I find that's the case for me too. My videos just keep getting longer and longer. And I'm like, what do I take out of this? I am just describing what I am doing. Like the only thing that I could do is just like like fully just not describe certain steps that I'm doing, which like I guess I could do, but I kind of want people to know everything that I'm trying to do. I don't like even get into the nitty gritty. I like explain what I'm doing for like 5 seconds and then move on to the next step. And it's like still fucking 30, 25 minutes long. It's like, God damn it, what am I doing?
That's where I find that like there's the differentiation between giving you enough information on a smaller number of sections that are, I think, are most important to give you direction and let you feel like you could replicate this in a video, as opposed to if you're teaching an in-person class.
Yeah,
we're covering less things, but we're really doing all the stuff that you're not seeing and the behind-the-scenes stuff of the technical execution, which is kind of leading into today's topic, the technical execution from start to finish, where an in-person experience, that's why it's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's why both are valuable, I think, too, which is really cool. I'm so glad that's like we can learn a whole bunch online about miniature painting, and that doesn't like make in-person education in this hobby kind of null and void.
Mm-hmm.
They're absolutely different things, and different people learn differently too. I think some people will learn better in person, and some people may not get as much out of it as they thought they would, based on kind of how you learn.
Definitely.
So,
yeah. Cool vehicle.
thank you.
All right, let's get into our patron critique for the week. If you want to have either John or I, or even both of us, it's going to be both of us, feedback on one of your miniatures, you can join our Patreon below. And it gets you access to a whole bunch of fun stuff, not just getting feedback, the ability to give us topics to discuss during an episode. You also are just really cool. You're part of the Cool Kids Club if you do that. But yeah, we give you feedback, and you get access to an extended portion of the podcast where we talk about like new things we tried out in the hobby, and what else?
We talk about the favorite miniatures we've found online that somebody else has painted. They've done all the hard work.
Yeah.
And we say why they're good.
Yeah.
So we do that.
It's about 20 minutes extra content if you want to be a patron, get some feedback, supply some topics, and here's some more goodness from your favorite hobby buddies. All right, anyways, we got a mini here.
From Matthias.
And it is a Chaos Sorcerer? No.
Chaos Sorcerer Lord.
Yes. I thought he was on a disc, but it's just a rock. It's a tactical rock.
I mean, not all rocks are discs, and not all discs are rocks. But sometimes discs and rocks are one and the same.
Yeah.
And this is one of those times.
Exactly. And
so
he's got a Chaos Undivided Scheme, black power armor, brass goldish trim, that classic gray edge highlight, and a purple cloak.
Purple cloak.
Mm-hmm.
All right. First things first, I'm going to give you props right on top here, Matthias.
Right on top.
I'm giving you the cherry first in a separate little dish before you get your ice cream.
Ooh.
You did the inside like edge highlighting of the armor panels where they met the trim.
Crazy bastard.
And that is insanity.
Yeah.
And it looks clean and it looks good. And bless you for doing that, because I've tried that before and it is not fun and it is not easy, because you're free balling it. There's no lines there. There's no edge that you're highlighting. You're just like, I'm moving 1 millimeter to the left of this edge of this detail of the metal, and I'm gonna freehand that line all the way around that to kind of outline the shape where those two meet.
It's an incredible exercise in patience, but also in brush control. So
Yes.
probably a lot of skills learned from doing that.
Yes, and by doing that, like you do that on even one figure, you have officially leveled up in your brush control and your ability to like paint on thin lines. So it sucks to do, but man, is it worth it in terms of the longevity of you learning brush control and you getting detail with it. And the lines that you have are relatively uniform in width. They're pretty crisp. They're not scratchy. It's well done. And that single feature alone, along with a nice dark lining of the actual metallics, really makes the model pop. And I think you did a great job with that. I would have gone with a darker gray than you went with. You went pretty dark from pure black up to this white. And I kind of get the mindset of that. It's like, I'm doing one pass of this, and I need it to really show. I don't want to have done all this work and it kind of fades to a dark gray and you can't see my hard work.
Oh, no, it's multiple layers.
Oh, is it?
If you look at his neck, you can see how the edge highlight on the left and right of the temple is darker, and then it's brighter in the middle. It might be 3, might be 2. It's hard to tell.
You just got 3 times the exercise.
Yeah, basically. And I think I agree with John. I think the brightest edge highlight, you wanted this to be like a tiny little pinprick of light. It's like, I think the classic heavy metal way is like when 2 lines meet in a corner, like hit a little dot right there, or a little dot with a little bit of a tail on either side of that meeting of a corner, and then the rest of it is kind of like this darker bluish gray edge highlight.
Yeah, I like your use of color. You used triangles a lot, so the red on red on his crotch cloth, red on his horns, and then red on the tip of the gun. Those work well as a nice kind of spot color.
The cloak is very well painted. I like the cloak. I like how you blend from those dark colors in the recesses to the brighter purple on the top of the peaks of the cloak with a nice little crispy edge highlight. That's my favorite part of the model, actually, is that nice purple cloak.
Things to work on, Scott. Things to improve on. First of all, he's standing on a rock, and then the rest of the base isn't done, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, what the hell, Matthias?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you went to the finish line, and you took a nap right before you crashed it. Like, what are you doing, bruh? That's a little thing, though, and we know you obviously have the chops that's not going to be a difficult thing for you. I think the Dark Angel's wing thingy that's coming off his back is pretty distracting because it's so bright white.
Yeah.
My eye is drawn to that as the brightest thing more than the face of the model. Also, the yellow eye on his staff is like lemon yellow, punchy bright yellow. So between a white wing over his right shoulder and then the yellow eye on his left shoulder, the focus of the model, which should be his face and chest, is actually lost a bit.
Yeah.
More of that attention and the brightest, most interesting points should come towards the center of the model. And you can have those other things be lighter colors, but they shouldn't be competing so much.
Yeah. And one way you can do that right now is you can just make the eye less yellow by having some of that same red you have on the model, kind of like on the edges of the eyeball, like there's some shading, and then take some of that yellow you used in the staff and also on the gun and put a tiny bit of that in the center of his eyes. Make them looking like they're glowing. And that'll kind of like link those details up and kind of make you feel like, okay, these are working together instead of like kind of distracting one another. Other things to work on, the downside of heavy metal painting is that there is always room for improvement. These lines could be thinner. They could follow the detail more closely. I'm looking at his his right shoulder, our left, from that main front-on picture, and I'm looking at the line as it traces the triangles, like the sharp parts of the trim, and it kind of like, it's a little bit too far away from like that area. Again, this is a very difficult thing to do, so it's like I feel bad to even bring it up, but this can always be crisper, it can always be closer to the detail and thinner and more, I don't know, like just more crispy, and that's hard to do, but that's one thing you can work on.
Yeah. Like overall, though, you should be proud of this, Matthias. This is really nice. This is a really good looking model. And I like these older Chaos Lords and Chaos Sorcerer Lords. I think they hold up pretty well over time, the models, and I think you did it justice.
Definitely.
Good job.
Thank you, Matthias. All right, let's get into the main topic. Today we're talking about technical execution compared to art. Artisan versus artist, craft versus art.
Arts and crafts time.
Woo! Whatever you wanted to, kind of describe it as, but that's the vibe, which is definitely a thing that many painters are familiar with. I feel like maybe comic book artists are a little bit further along in their journey, but because we play games with these things and because the subject of models, at least in our particular world, is mostly fantasy and sci-fi based, that tends to feel like it reduces like the importance of it, the artistic value of it. And so sometimes people in the hobby will ask the question like, okay, am I an artisan or am I an artist? Obviously we are artists, but we want to kind of talk about that today at length in the podcast.
Yeah, and I think the core of it is kind of the first big boulder we have to climb over, and that is the fact that we're not actually, most of us anyway, we didn't sculpt the model to begin with.
Sure.
So it is a
huge thing.
It is a work of art in that miniature sculpture that we're not the creator of. And so let's say that, a beautiful Da Vinci statue, or a marble statue that you've seen in Rome or something, a bust. I think originally many of those were painted. And even if you weren't the sculptor, I think you'd consider the person that painted them to look like a real person to be an artist, to make it feel like a real person. And so we sometimes, I feel like, put the weight on ourselves of like, or others would put the weight on us that like, well, you didn't sculpt the figure, you just colored in the coloring book. And that's why it's like, from the get-go, we kind of feel like we're on our heels,
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people feel that. And so I wanted to start us off with a bit of a history lesson here to kind of figure out where this idea of art came from, and like the modern sense of art, and maybe where it's going to go. And so I did a little research, and I watched a TED education video by Laura Morelli, which we'll link below, but I'll summarize it here for you. So in the 1400s, art did not exist in the way that we understand it today, and was mostly guild work, So journeymen, apprentices, masters, tradition. There's a very defined order of things. If you want to become a fresco painter or a maker of pottery or a cobbler, like there are steps you follow to become that thing, and it's very quantitative.
So it's like going to school. And
exactly. Yeah.
You'd have mentors, and you'd be an apprentice, and you work yourself up this ladder.
Absolutely. And the individual who created the art wasn't the person who got the props. It was the owner of the thing. So if someone hired someone to make a beautiful sculpture, it'd be like, oh wow, Ted, that sculpture is amazing. Tell me about it. And like the value would be on the owner, not on the maker.
I wonder why that is. Is it because look, if it wasn't for my rich ass that commissioned this thing wouldn't exist. Because that poor SOB that can make it, he can't make it without the money for me to give him. So I'm the real reason why it exists.
Yeah. I don't know. That is a weird conversation we could also discuss. But it's strange how quickly it changed. So in 1550, a book came out by an author named Giorgio Vasari, and it's called Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects.
Oh, damn. That's a sweet title.
I know, yeah. And it changed the perspective that people have on artists, and it made them out to be like rock stars and like famous people. And then like instantly, almost overnight, not overnight, it probably wasn't overnight, but very quickly in the grand scheme of like time, people's opinions of innovation and individual creativity, as opposed to like maintaining like this rigid guild structure of artisans and craftsmen, like changed. And then suddenly people were like, oh, like I kind of am going to pay this artist based on merit, and not like, okay, frescoes cost this much. People get paid to make a fresco per square foot, and it's a set value, like by the guilds. And they don't get paid if it's like, oh, this fresco artist is better than this one. Like, it doesn't matter. They all get paid the same amount. But now it's different. Now in 1550 and beyond, people are getting paid because you are hiring someone because of their notoriety.
Oh, so it was more like prior to this, it was like you're working in a factory that's putting out widgets. Your widgets just happen to be like teapots.
Sure.
So it didn't matter who made the teapot.
Right.
It was the fact that the teapot you commissioned for X number of teapots to be made, and that's all that mattered. Mm-hmm. There wasn't almost a value in individuality or expression or creativity or pushing the boundaries on things, because you were just performing the task.
That's 100% accurate.
Wow.
Yes. And so it was largely a Western culture thing. A lot of Eastern cultures maintained and really valued the idea of tradition. Like that was their like kind of art. And Western culture kind of viewed that as primitive because it was like a lack of innovation, a lack of creativity. And so it's interesting. I think one thing that's really interesting about this is just how quickly modern thought could change, you know? It's like in one century, we have this opinion of like art and it's very utility. Like there is no such thing as like, at least not in the way we understand it now, this individual worth and value due to merit. And then like someone writes a book and then like a tidal wave of just social change occurs. And then like all of a sudden we now think this way about art. And it's like, whoa. And when I think about that and I think like this could happen at any moment. And like we could go under some kind of like large cultural change, societal change, just if someone gives us a different perspective on something that we didn't have before, and it gets adopted like widespread. It's like so weird how little is needed for that kind of change to occur.
I think in the information age that we're in now, a much bigger ripple would have to have compared to in 1550s. You think about the sheer number of books, the amount of information you have access to. Each one has the potential to create much more of a change or an impact. However, I do think that there is a tie to something that we even briefly mentioned earlier in this episode.
How about
AI?
Yeah.
Now, AI can go one of two ways in this regard. It can go one of two ways for good or evil as well. But like when it comes to the art aspect, we are either going to say, well, AI can grab everything from what has ever been created and posted on the internet, and it can make an amalgamation blob of just copying and stealing to make a new thing that didn't exist before. And because of that, we don't need to value the creativity or the creation from real humans.
Right, yeah.
You know?
I think that's a thing. Like if people can't tell the difference between something that's created for the first time and something that's synthesized from an artistic average, then like the average layperson is going to begin to devalue art. Like that, I think maybe that's a pessimistic thing.
I think that's absolutely a realistic view of it, and I've already seen and heard that, that take.
So it's like the reverse of what happened in 1550 almost. Like innovation and personal creativity and individual merit is less important because this generic thing that's, not a person can create something that's pretty compelling looking,
Right. Yes. And that's, I think that's the fear of it is that, well, okay, yeah, but all you're doing is you're stealing from existing things that have been created. And if those things weren't created by people, you'd have nothing to steal from.
But they don't fucking care.
Right. But then we have this line in the sand that is drawn. That is, going forward, if you then devalue true art made by humans, and that ceases to exist or exists at a much, much smaller scale, two things are going to happen. One, we are not going to get more new art.
Yeah.
And then your AI stagnates and it becomes,
it does. You're right.
It stagnates,
but it takes like a century and a half for that to be even noticeable. And even then, maybe AI finds some way to like shake and bake some of this art up in a way that the lay person doesn't even really notice that it's happening. And
right.
I feel like it can definitely write itself out of that situation if it were to occur.
I think so too. I think it could.
And I don't, it's depressing,
right,
to think about that, honestly.
Yes. And we're, you're stifling, actual innovation, right? Because AI can try to replicate or try to manufacture innovation when that's not at all what it's doing. It's just trying to put things in a different order or in a different way that seems crazy. Right. And then that's the way it quote unquote innovates. So I think from the positive side, that's the way it goes, which I sincerely believe it is going to go that way, that two things are going to happen. One, we are going to have a new age of innovation to justify art made by humans. And that is going to push innovation in a way that we haven't seen in probably a century. When we talk about all the historical movements of great weight over the history of man, we haven't seen a whole lot of that, and especially since, that's like the Art Deco period, right? There's just not been a lot. This will be the rocket ship that catalyst for that. And so we're talking about the change from 1400 to 1550. We are on the cusp of, if we want to look on the bright side, of that happening again, because we are under these constraints of a mass thing happening that will encourage that change. The other thing that will happen, I think, is that this individuality, this created by human hands, won't find itself on the internet so much anymore, because it needs to not be beg, borrow, and stolen. It needs to not be, be scanned in and be put on the internet and be fed to the monster to be, regurgitated and thrown out in a different form. And so maybe physical art and physical experiences related to art will still hold, or even hold more weight, value, and experience amongst them. And it's going to be less, even looked down upon, to share things in a way that can be grabbed by AI.
Well, that's the death of our careers, brother. if sharing art on the internet becomes taboo or becomes like a movement, then that's what we do, But that's like, who knows when that's going to happen? And honestly, this could be a whole fucking conversation. We actually never have talked about AI as a topic in a podcast, but we certainly could. But anyways, so this idea of craft versus art, it's like, is the Mona Lisa art? Sorry, is it a craft? Is a Mayan pottery or some kind of a beautiful rug or a prehistoric ritual dagger? Are those things art? So like modern day, we've like started to move away from the term of art and have now started to call it visual art. Because it's less so about, it's more specific, I think, is the main difference here. Because, just because Eastern cultures put value in maintaining tradition doesn't mean it's any less artistic than something that is like the Mona Lisa. And so now we kind of bring it back to mini painting to ask the questions, where does mini painting lie in this spectrum? Is there a spectrum? And so I have some conclusions here about the difference between craft and art, and that is, craft is a precise thing and art is more of an expressive thing. And I think the main takeaway from that kind of idea is that craft is very outcome focused, right? It's like, sure, I am creating a thing that has a purpose. I'm painting a model for a game that I'm going to play. Whereas art is very much so about the process. And so, and to tie it back into this AI thing you were talking about earlier, it's like you mentioned that artists might go through some kind of like renaissance where they're changing art in a significant way to make it appear different than AI. That to me sounds very outcome focused. Like we're trying to create something that is unique, where I think art, as weird and loosey-goosey as it sounds, is very much so about the process of a person making something. It's like you had an idea for making a thing, you had a thing you wanted to create or express, and the process is that expression. It's not just focused on the outcome. And so where does mini painting fall in there?
Right. I have often heard that how to define art is that experiencing it gives you an emotional response.
Okay.
And I don't think there is any real, hard and fast definition of what is art and what isn't. And I think that's part of the kind of allure and mysticism of it.
Sure.
Because art is an individual experience, much like why people think that something like comedy is art. Because comedy is how you interpret it, and it creates an emotional response within you, and it's different person to person.
Okay.
I may think a joke is the funniest joke that's ever been uttered or written, and you may think it's the most offending thing ever.
Sure.
And it can be both, and that's why it's art. And so our miniature models can be art because someone, whether they know this hobby and they've never even heard the word Warhammer before, can pick up something you've painted and they say, wow, that looks so cool and it's so small. That's an emotional response. And it can be a model from your army from something you've painted a couple years ago, or you're brand new to the hobby, or you don't think you're all that great of a painter, but guess what? If it creates an emotional response, then it's done something. And so I think we put art on such a high pedestal, and oftentimes we're pretty closed-minded about it because we feel it makes us look arrogant.
Sure.
Makes us sound like we're full of ourselves, and makes us think that we are amazing at something to call what we do art.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to say that, how calling something art implies something about its quality.
Yes.
Which is not necessarily what is trying to be said, but it absolutely comes off that way.
Right. So even at a core level of a core emotional response, awe, wonder, excitement are emotional responses. And I can get that when I walk to the local game store and I'm watching people play their games on Thursday nights, and I can see like one particular Tyranid in this dude's army, and I ask like, hey, can I take a closer look at that? And just the way that where it was positioned on the gaming table, the way that there were other models around it, the way that its colors popped out next to the blue Space Marines that were around it, and its pose in the way that you used colors and that you created drama and interesting, and the environment that it's on, and the play mat and the terrain and all that. You've created this situation that is in front of me that's made me say, wow, can I look closer at your model? That's an emotional response, and that makes it art. And sometimes it's not as simple as just, I painted this model, is it art, is it not art? It's everything in the tornado of the situation that's created the moment where you're creating an emotional response. And so it's hard for us to like look at our own things, you know. I think especially as Midwesterners, where we're like, you don't want to, Midwesterners are pretty close to the vest and not trying to make themselves look arrogant and full of themselves. And we don't want to put that title on our stuff, but we can look at other people's stuff, and I think it's easier, right? It's easier for you and I to look at a piece painted by, you know, Sam Lenz or Eric Swinson or Andy Warhol and be like, that's totally fucking art. But if I look at my piece, I don't jump to that conclusion. There's some weird disconnect.
Yeah, there's definitely some element of like, I don't want to appear or sound hoity-toity, you know, and art definitely has that vibe about it. I'm curious, do you think that a model can be art to someone and that exact same model can be like more craft to another?
I think so. I think because art is a personal experience and a personal reaction, it does not mean that it needs to have that personal experience or personal reaction to everyone that experiences it. So you could go look at, you could take 1,000 people, take them to Museum of Art and look at the Starry Night, that painting, famous painting, and not all 1,000 people will have an emotional reaction to it. And because it doesn't have an emotional reaction to one of that 1,000, it's probably gonna be a lot more than 1,000. There's a lot of dumb people out there that just kind of like lose themselves in it, or just experience and feel something, allow themselves to be open to it. If any of those 1,000 do not feel anything, does that mean that is not art?
I don't know. So for you, it's all about that reaction.
I think eliciting an emotional response.
Is there a sliding scale?
I think so. I think so. I think certain things are, one, created with the intent of emotional response.
Okay.
And that are created to like showcase, really to push it in your face, or it cannot be helped. And oftentimes the creation process may be really gearing towards that. And if you're really gearing towards that, a great example, have you ever seen, I can't remember what museum it's in, but it's this machine, and it's in a big glass, like, aquarium type of thing. And it's a machine, and the machine is leaking oil, and it has this long, like, shovel thing attached to the arm. And the arm is part of the machine. And the machine needs that oil in order to continue to function.
Sure.
And so it's continually scraping the oil back into itself so it can continue to function while it's spurting it out.
Okay.
And so it's a very technical thing. There's nothing pretty in its design. There's nothing that is made to, like, say, take a photo of it, and if you took a photo and I showed it on my phone to you, that you'd be like, wow, it's emotionally.
It's not aesthetically beautiful.
Yes, but when you see it in action, it is dying before your eyes, and it's trying to bring its lifeblood back into itself so it can continue to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a machine, but it also makes a statement, and it's also like, is this about our own world? Is this about each of us as humans? Is this about whatever? Like, it's a kind of like a miniature crane arm. There's nothing that's necessarily aesthetically pleasing about it. It's kind of alarming to look at, but that was made with the intent to really make you think more deeper about it. And that's different than the person that designs a crane that builds buildings, even though mechanically the structure and the shape and everything is very similar.
So do you think there is more value to someone reacting to a painted miniature of, like, say, a certain people that's in strife compared to, like, Marnius Calgar? Like, two different people are going to have a similar level of emotional response to those things. Like, and is there a difference? Are both of those emotional responses the same, that making both those things art? Is there more value to one or the other?
I think that's a deeper question than that. It's and I don't know if there's a true answer to it, because there's whole going to university for art history and art, art majors and that kind of thing, of understanding the subject matter and its intent. Does that influence its quote unquote value as a piece of art?
Right.
I don't know. And again, like, I would rather have an original Frank Frazetta on my wall than I would having a Picasso on my wall.
Same, yeah.
If they were worth the same amount of money, right? Right? Like, if I'm like, yeah, but I can sell that one
Picasso and then buy 300 Frank Frazetta.
Yeah. But like, Frank Frazetta's with the awesome fucking barbarian, where he's attacking this crazy tiger monster thing, and there's a snake wrapped around a mostly naked lady.
He's got a babe on his hip.
Yeah, babe on his hip. Like that. Those are both arts, and they can affect people in different ways. They may find more value. I think it gets a little bit fishy when you're talking about art, when monetary dollar amounts are attached to things, and then that skews what we think is more or less valuable, right? And so look at it this way. We can put a dollar amount and then think that you're wrong if you don't think the more expensive thing is more valuable, right? So the art world has taught us that we can put a point on a bar for how good this art is based on its dollar amount. You could also say the same thing for the subject matter. Well, the more serious the subject matter is, and the more that it tells us about what we as people are destroying the world around us, that's much more art than this fucking badass dude with a flaming sword that's standing on a pile of skulls. Is it? I don't know.
I think it comes down a lot to, like, the training of it all, right? So as, like, if you had to take a poll of every single miniature painter on the face of the earth, and you ask them, is the hobby more of an art or a craft? What's the breakdown?
I think you would get more that it's a craft, because the vast majority of miniature painters are approaching their goal for the final outcome of the piece to be about the technical execution and not about the artistic statement.
What's the breakdown? Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? Is it more?
I think that number has gotten closer together with each passing year, which is a really interesting sign.
Okay.
However, I still think it's probably how many would say it's art and how many would say it's craft?
Yeah, or maybe like...
Or how many would... I think a better question is, how many would say, do you approach your miniature painting from the aspect of an art or a craft?
Sure. Yeah.
So you're just looking at yourself. There, I would probably be like 80-20, I think. 80% craft, 20% art.
Interesting.
Maybe 70-30.
Okay.
And I think, again, more of that's gone towards art over time.
Yeah. So what I was just saying is I think that it comes down to the training. So like if you were to ask that same question to someone to like a million different canvas painters, obviously it'd be like 95.5 art to craft. And because of that global opinion of all the people that are involved in the creating of that particular art or object, it becomes an art. And because everyone who engages, not everyone, but the majority of people who engage in our hobby consider it to be more of a craft, then it is perceived that way. I feel like that really matters.
Yeah, I think when you have outside perception, that has a great influence. But I also think that outside perception, when the skeletal structure of the thing we're talking about are toys and games, it really, a layman's view on things shouldn't carry a lot of weight. But yes, the outside perspective is very much that. And that is kind of the core for a lot of us, how we got into it, is from the gaming or from the toy perspective.
Sure.
And so you're starting, basically the lowest rung of the ladder. And so you got to only go up, right?
Right.
It's not like you could, for most people, that you have the option of approaching this from 10 rungs up. That's pretty rare. And usually when you would, the people that I have known in the miniature painting community that do that, they come from an art background. They're exposed to this somehow at a higher artistic level, and they jump in from there.
Yeah. It's interesting. It actually really is interesting how different a person who gets into the hobby from that angle is different from someone who gets into it through Games Workshop, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
They have very different approaches to the hobby. And one of those differences is with precision, right? So I think the hobby in general has this love relationship with precision. And I think it comes from GW, if I had to make a guess. Whereas like the value of something is as precise as it can be executed. Do you think that art cares about execution? Like, and how much do they care about execution in the grand scheme of like, I'm trying to express an idea. That's my main goal. What slice of the pie is execution?
Yeah, I mean, if your idea is muddied by your lack of execution, then your idea means nothing.
Okay. That's an opinion.
Yeah.
I
think you can have the best of intentions in this really heartfelt, powerful message, but if you can't execute it on a way where it can be interpreted that way, and it's not convoluted and it's not muddy and it's yet still open to own personal interpretation. You have that fine, funny line to walk there, that you can't create maximum impact without some level of execution. It's really interesting if you look at even things like artists that worked in really weird formats, that you look at their art and like Picasso is one of them, where it doesn't look like it's technically difficult to execute, right? Where it's like I'm seeing a two-dimensional picture of a person's face, but also their ear that should be unseen is now popped out to the side, and the dimensions and the angles are weird, and both eyes are on the one side of the face and all that. If you look at historically an artist like that, to their earlier works, they are technically really good artists. And at some point, you go from having a solid foundation and grasp in execution level to then you push yourself into expressionism. And without that core foundation, I don't think you will ever reach the pure impact in the artistic sphere, because you have that foundation that is allowing you to execute on a level that creates maximum impact. So for us, if I don't have a really strong understanding of how color and light and surface and environment all work together in this convoluted, very chaotic, yet very, very complex way, if I don't have a strong foundation in that, I cannot create this really impactful scene of this soldier walking back from war, walking through wheat fields and all this. Like, I can't create that to create maximum impact if my foundation and execution is not sound. Once it's sound, then I have the ability to experiment, to really push things in a weird direction. Because I know how color works and I know how my medium works, acrylic paint or oil paint. Now that I really know how they work, now I can fuck with it because I know the boundaries, and so I can push them. But not until I know them, at least have a foundational understanding of them, can I really push them.
Okay, so some minimum barrier of technicality is required to be able to really express an idea that reaches people, according to you.
I think that there are certainly going to be exceptions to that.
Sure, that's totally fine.
But
we don't got to discuss the edge cases.
Yeah, edge cases. And like there's great examples these days of like savants, like kids with autism that are 8 or 10 years old and create these wild, masterful works with no training. And you're like, how the heck, what am I, how, and it creates an emotional response. There's something else there in the human mind that certain people have tapped into, like who knows what other crazy soul from another life is like attached themselves to them or whatever, that there are amazing unknown reasons why the world is we're still in awe of certain things in the world. That's a good example of that. But I think by and large, I find that to be true, that you need to have a clear grasp of the execution and the craft. And from there, you can learn how to best utilize it to push the artistic side.
How many painters, if you showed them a bust by Eric Swinson, like wouldn't get it?
Wouldn't get it.
Yeah, maybe like the value of it.
Wouldn't get the value, like the value in the quality of the work.
Yeah, or like maybe even like why they would do that.
Sure. Okay. I think most painters and even laymen's, if they had his stuff in a museum, or like Roman Lapat's done with his stuff in a museum, and you have lay people go in there, even if they couldn't understand the reasons why it's impactful, I think most would still find it impactful.
I think I agree with that too.
A good example is, because we've been painting for a while and we understand these little nuances that really good painters have been able to execute upon that look effortless.
Yeah.
That seem so natural that the average person wouldn't even notice them. And a great example is Eric's ability to use cast shadows to create drama and environment and impact and light with a frickin' one dark line. Mm-hmm. And you may not even realize that it's a cast shadow if you're kind of new to looking at miniature painting, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't create the same impact for you. Mm-hmm. You just may not be able to dissect it. I think that's one of the things that us in this craft is kind of the burden or curse, is that we look at a piece, we're like, wow, and within a second or two, we're like, how do they do that? Let me try to dissect it. Let me zoom in on that. How do they do that? Oh, look at how that color works with that. Okay, what kind of color was that? And like, oh, look at how that red light bounced on the underside of the armor to give it 3 dimensions. And you're dissecting instead of appreciating, but you get to the dissection because you appreciate it on first glance. But maybe you didn't allow yourself to just like sink in the sludge of appreciation first. Do you feel that? I feel like I often jump right into
how it's done.
How it's done.
Yeah. And I think I do that as well. But I think it's actually really special that someone can appreciate something without understanding how it's done. You know, like that moment of awe, that moment of wonder. It's like we can watch an amazing film and not understand why it's making us feel the way it is, just because we're relating to it on a level. But like, you don't even need to understand that to appreciate it. And I think that, you know, that's the closest thing that I get to spirituality. You know, it's like everyone can appreciate this thing on a level without understanding how it comes to be. And it's like that in a vacuum, just saying that out loud sounds weird.
Right.
But it's cool and magical in a way, I kind of feel like.
Yeah, especially in modern society where we feel like we have to have the answer to everything for it to be valid.
Sure, yeah. Oh my God. Especially in modern society. Jesus Christ.
Yes. And if you can't explain it, it's just that we don't know the answer yet, and the magic has been revealed. There is no magic. It's just that our science hasn't figured out how to reveal it yet. And sometimes not trying to figure it out, just experiencing it and seeing what it does for you as a human to experience it is much more worthwhile and more valuable and probably more useful for your outlook on life than just feeling like if I don't know the answer, then it's not worth worrying about, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. Now, I do think that you can still create an impact at that level of craftsmanship in your miniature art before you've truly gone on this, like, you know, this journey of making it art, right? This hazy gap of like becoming a craftsman and then making something art. Like, and I will use myself 100% in this example. My Golden Demon piece of Physics Scour, I approach that as, and I look at that as myself, not as art. I look at it as trying to be as technically craftsman execution as much as possible. And there are aspects to it that were required some understanding and some technical execution of artistic principles for them to have more impact. But I still think it can be viewed in a way that makes an impact, that is still exciting, that is still creates an emotional response when it was attempted, when its creation was focused on the technical execution, the craft side.
How would that model be different if while you were making it, you were more focused on the art than you were the execution? How would it look different?
I think I would have spent a lot more time in the macro and a lot less time in the micro.
Okay.
And how that would look would be just the approach from step one would be trying to create big impact with color, with paint, with light, with even the creation of the scene in some way that was more about that drama than about the fine-tuning of the details. And not that the details wouldn't be as fine-tuned. I could still paint that model probably till the technical execution level that it was now, and have it look completely different with an artistic approach. And I don't know if it would be better looking or not.
Would you paint it in parts? Would you put it together more than you?
I would have put it 100% together because everything needs to feel like it was connected.
Okay.
And it would need to be connected. So every impact with a large brush and big strokes and bold colors and unafraid of line and texture and clashing of things and all that, I feel like I would be able to execute that on better if I were to be able to just have the full vision of it throughout the process.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it would be different. Also, part of that was based on the competition that it was painted for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I painted that for Golden Demon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if I was going to Monte Sansovino and I was painting that same model, I would not paint it like I did.
It's interesting.
Yeah, not that it necessarily wouldn't do well at Monte, but I don't think it's the core foundation of where you're bringing it to show. It's a different environment, and that makes you make different decisions. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe some people don't do it that way, but I do, or I would.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing more to say on this topic, but I think it's really interesting, and I'd love the discourse to continue in the comment section below. What do you think about the hobby? How do you approach it? What's like your goals while painting? Are you trying to express something artistically? Are you trying to enjoy the process? Are you trying to create something that you're going to end up using later on? Are you focused on technique and precision? Are you focused more on overall impact of a thing that you're working on? These are all really interesting questions to me and John, and we'd love to hear your answer because it's really cool. The coolest thing about being a YouTuber is getting a very large perspective on the hobby. When I entered this hobby, I had an idea of how people did it, and I kind of just very stupidly assumed that everyone enjoyed it in the same way, and that is so wrong. It's amazing as a YouTuber to see all the different ways people get into the hobby and get joy out of it. So let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that oftentimes we don't dig into it mentally of our approach, like you listed off all these ways that you approach your hobby, I think oftentimes we don't ask ourselves those questions. And I think that is not a bad thing, because it can be overwhelming. And you feel like if I ask myself the question, then I have to have the answer and I have to know.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it just happens naturally. Like the more you engage in a hobby, the more I think just nuanced and the more bigger your questions become and stuff like that, because you're less focused on like the technique and the building blocks of the hobby, and you're more interested in like these larger ideas.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's it. When you get your foundation, when you get inspiration, when you beg, borrow, and steal from other artists, whether it's through YouTube, through Instagram, through your local friends or whatever, the more you're building that foundation and building a level of comfort, and you may not even ever feel comfortable, because a lot of us try to like keep kind of riding that edge
Yeah, you just keep going.
of uncomfortability.
Yeah.
If you take a step back and you sit in your comfort zone, you just sit in them juices for a while, you realize, man, this comfort pool is a lot bigger than it was a year ago.
Yeah.
The more that you kind of work through that, the more that it just kind of organically happens in a direction will just kind of present itself, and it'll excite you and you'll move that way. And only in looking at things in retrospective, I think you have a good kind of understanding of where you've gone and where you've grown and the different paths you've taken. So this has been fun. Yeah, we could have definitely done everything on AI as well. But I mean, we probably need to do some more research on that, because that's not something that, and even thinking about that, digging into those arguments and all that stuff online just makes me feel like I'm just going to get depressed by doing that. But
yeah, it's also going to require me to research AI, which I have so far avoided as much as humanly possible.
Right.
I just have no interest in it. But it's not going to be next week at the very least. We have an exciting episode for next week that you're definitely going to want to tune into.
Yeah.
Or not next week. Next
episode.
Next episode.
Right. We're recording it next week.
Yeah.
So that you weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have is this the most reoccurring guest we've ever had?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
This stupid fuck.
I wish I had the voice line, but that fucking SD card that has it is broken.
Rip SD card. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna be able to beg, borrow, and steal it from the next episode.
Yeah, some more sound bites.
We should make him say silly things.
Oh yeah, that'd be easy.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we don't have to. He's gonna.
Yeah. Welcome to the end of the podcast. Thank you for spending your afternoon, evening, morning, drive to work, whatever it may be with us. We really appreciate your ears.
And sometimes your eyes.
Sometimes your eyes.
Yeah, so if you didn't know, this podcast is available both on YouTube and on all places where you can listen to podcasts. So if you're like, yeah, I just watch you guys on YouTube, it's like, well, maybe you're going on a trip sometime or whatever, and you want to catch up on back ones, or you want to re-listen to certain ballsack episodes or whatever. Just make sure you give the podcast a follow there, just so the algorithm gods are like, oh, people follow or subscribe to this podcast on their podcast apps. And
absolutely,
that would be a great way to support us, and you can make sure you never miss an episode, even if you're not able to sit and watch us.
Absolutely. And you can also leave us a review on those areas. There's just some great ways to support the podcast without spending your actual dollary dues. But if you have some money that you want to spend to support the podcast because you enjoy what we do here, we have a Patreon. That's the number one way that we get the money through doing this podcast, and then reinvest in things like writers and coming up with fun ideas and sets like this. And another way you can do that is with some merch. We have a Teespring link down in the description where we sell t-shirts, cups, leggings, not leggings, sweatpants. We don't fucking have leggings. Could you imagine if one episode it's just us and fucking leggings? We need that Necronomicon pillow. But yeah, those things are all fantastic ways to support the podcast, all linked down in the description or show notes below.
Yeah. I just thought of like other merch ideas, like ballsack warmers.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. What if we could sell skippets that were shaped of ballsacks?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder how many of those we'd sell. We'd probably sell
like
3.
Hasbro would have a problem, maybe.
I mean, yeah, that's true. We could just like buy skippets and then like cover them and like
we could kit bash them with ball sacks. We could use our own ball sacks. We could mold them.
Oh, we got to make a mold.
Yeah,
silicone mold.
This has gone so fucking sideways.
I blame whoever put that intro for us, because I had completely forgotten about Emperor Palpatine's ball sack.
Probably for the better, honestly.
Probably for the better. All right, Scott and I are about to pee our pants, so we're going to wrap it up right now. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another new episode with Fancy Pants guest, and we will catch you on the
Flippity flop.